Cha-cha.
Of course, you know, this means war.
Is a hijacking. Jeff Gamet is on the phone with me. How much snow do you have so far, Mr. Gamet?
I went outside with my yardstick a couple hours ago because, of course, I did.
Right.
And at the time, I had 8 inches of snow. But a weather report that I read a few minutes ago said we have 13 now. And my parents, who live up in Estes Park, which is, just outside Rocky Mountain National Park, for those of you that know where that is, they sent me a photo just a few minutes ago, and they're up over 2 feet.
Wow. See, here's the thing, though, because you're in Colorado, by the time people hear this Monday morning, it could all be gone.
Yes, that's true. Welcome to Colorado.
Yeah.
Our secret that we don't share, and of course, since this is just between us and no one will ever hear, our snow melts really fast.
Yeah. No, actually, my special lady friend was telling me one time that they went, I think she was thinking about going to the Air Force Academy. And so they went to the Air Force Academy to tour, and they went inside, and it was just snowing to beat the band. There was snow all over the ground. She was really excited to come back out later and see some of the snow, because she hadn't in a while, because though she had lived in Colorado, they had moved. And when she came out of the interview, 2.5 hours later, just sort of the informational interview, all gone. All the snow was gone.
Out, it was gone.
Yep, that was it. By the way, best of luck to you for the rest of the day. The thing is, a year from now, people are going to be like, oh, it snowed in Colorado. Why are they talking about it?
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those big, not storm of the century big, but batten down the hatches big storms. But that's not what's news to us today, unless it is, in which case we can keep talking about the weather. For people who know this show, on Monday, we turn over to the guest. This week's guest, of course, Jeff Gamet, as I mentioned. Turn the show over to them and find out what is news to them, what thing of interest. Usually tech, sometimes Apple. I don't know. I have no idea what Jeff is going to say. What's going to happen is I'm going to say it's news to Jeff, and Jeff is going to say...
And Jeff is going to say, you are really not expecting this topic from me.
All right.
And it's news to me, but it's also kind of a twist on, apparently it's news to everyone else about me, which is that my web browser of choice is Microsoft Edge. There's a Microsoft product that I really, really like using.
Okay.
And it surprises me that so many people are shocked to hear that my web browser of choice is not Safari.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost leaving me speechless. But in the past, I'd say 2 weeks, I've had several people express just outright shock at the fact that I am not a Safari fan. And what it has shown me is that the browser wars that I thought had ended long ago and had stopped being a near religious thing has not stopped being a near religious thing.
All right, so what is it that, it hasn't even crossed my mind to use Microsoft Edge, and not because, Microsoft sucks, because that's not honestly how I feel. There's a lot of stuff about Microsoft I don't like, but I understand there's a lot of stuff that people do, and that's fine. I use Safari because, Safari is what Apple ships. I do also have Firefox on there, and I do have Chrome. Chrome I put on just so I could do the YouTube thing, go live on YouTube, rather. Firefox I put on there because when Bloomberg realizes I've used too many of my free articles on
you can
Safari,
switch to a different browser.
Right, I switched to Firefox, and it's like, okay, you've only got 3 more, and I'm like, all right, suckers. What was it that made you try Edge?
Initially, I tried Edge simply because I was curious to see how Microsoft's web browser worked on the Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And I started using it and quickly came to like it. Now, there is a little backstory on this. I had been using Chrome for a while, not because I wanted to use Chrome, but because it was necessary for very specific plugins that I needed to have, and they just simply weren't available for Safari. So I it was just easier to stay in Chrome all the time. But I didn't like the fact that that Chrome is tracking your activity all the time, even when you put it into private mode, do not track, all of that. It still continued to track you. It just really left a bad taste in my mouth. Well, it turns out that Edge, which is Chromium based, does not track you when you don't want to be tracked. And that was very compelling to me. And it turns out the web browser is really fast. It's really stable. It renders great because Chrome is basically the standard now. And then a plugin that has completely changed how I work with web browsers is Workona. And it's available for Chrome and Chromium browsers. So it works in Edge as well. And it gives me that. This is going to date me, very old school here. Mm-hmm. Do you remember OmniWeb?
I know the name.
Yeah, well, that's doing better than a lot of people. It ran all of the tabs down the side in a column instead of across the top.
Okay.
Which to me makes much more sense, unless you have like 3 or 4 tabs and that's it.
Right.
Running them down the side is much easier because you can read all of your tabs, and they don't just keep shrinking and shrinking until they're just little close X's and nothing more.
So the preview thing in Safari didn't rectify that for you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But excellent question, and of course I totally checked that out. And anyhow, so I became an Edge user, and so many people, I think, assume simply because I use Apple products that I would never consider a Microsoft product. They make great keyboards. They make great mice. One of my first computer purchases after I had a computer was a Microsoft product. Back in the day, dating me again, Microsoft made accessories for the Apple II. And one of their accessories was a CPM card. And so I bought that and popped it into my Apple II, and then I could run all of the Apple II software and then any CPM-based software that I wanted, which was great. And the card worked so well, when I eventually got an Apple II GS, I popped it in there, and I had a computer that could run Apple II GS software, Apple II software, CPM software. I had a computer that could run more than like anyone else, practically. And it was awesome. It was a solid card. Wow, I'm getting nostalgic. So anyhow, then part of this news for me is, do we still have this thing going on all the time where people feel like you have to be in one camp or the other with your technology?
Personally, I don't think so, but I think it might go to the kind of thing that, who is it? Was it the UK or the EU? Somebody. I know it's the Australians. The Australian, the ACCC down in Australia is commissioning a report on defaults in mobile devices. I think, though, I mean, Safari is what comes pre-installed. So we just start using that, and then that's where we are. I don't think most people, which is kind of funny. I mean, on the one hand, you could say, well, that's a reason for regulation. On the other hand, you could say nobody cares, so nobody cares. I think most people use whatever's in front of them. So when they buy a Mac, there's, Safari, and they start using Safari. And it's a little weird because they've always used, Explorer or whatever. I don't even know what's on Microsoft for the most part these days. I think most people don't care about the web browser at all. They care about, can they get to Facebook? And so I think what you might be coming up against, I don't know, because I don't know who you're talking to. It's possible, though, you're coming up against people who just don't even think, oh, there's a choice? Why?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I think that's probably some of it, or part of it. Some of the people that I've spoken to are very much Apple product fans. And some of the people are just general technology users. They're using whatever it is that. There you go. Just like you said, it's whatever was put in front of them, and so that's what they use. And why would they use something else?
Right.
Yeah, which worked really well for Microsoft back in the day. I mean, that was a big part of making Explorer so big.
I mean, it depends. I think there's a reticence to change for a lot of people. Like, I don't remember when I got my Mac, what the other options were, my first Mac, that is, what the other options were for browsing. I do know, though, that I had to make sure that there was a version of Office for the Mac, because I was very much into Word. And then I started using, some of the freebies. I got tired of paying for it. And then finally reticently, I decided, okay, I'll go ahead and try Pages. And I've been using that for over 10 years now, because once I tried it, it was fine. So, I mean, I think part of it might be just, it's hard to get people to want to try something different if it works. And then, like I say, there's just the whole putting it in front of people as well. I'm curious, if you don't mind my asking, what was it that made you not like Safari?
The interface in general, which is kind of ironic, I think, because the interface across browsers generally is basically the same. So the horizontal tab thing, I just never have been a fan of that.
Okay.
And I'm now going to complain about the same things that are problems with other browsers, but for some reason it bugged me in Safari. The way that Safari would just chew through memory, and then ultimately what became the biggest problem for me, I think, was when I decided, here's the specific thing that I want to do in a web browser. There's a plugin that makes that happen, but it isn't available for Safari.
Gotcha.
So then I had to go and look somewhere else, and ultimately it became, you have to use Chrome. And I've never been a big Firefox fan, which I know there's people out there right now that are just flipping. How can you not be a Firefox fan? I have it installed because sometimes I need to look at websites in multiple browsers just to see how they look.
Right.
And yeah, so I have Firefox installed. But yeah, never been a big fan.
So then, is the news for you this week the surprise, or is there actually like a Rumble set up? Like, is there a Jetson Sharks moment in your future, or is it just you didn't know that people didn't know?
A big part of it is I just had assumed that this wasn't a thing anymore, so I was surprised. But there is definitely a Jetson Sharks Rumble moment coming at some point, and that's because I found out that Workona is working on a version of their Tab Manager plugin for Safari. And when it comes out, I'm going to install it on Safari, and we'll see if that's enough to get me to stay in Safari. I mean, it may very well be that all I need are the tabs down the side, and then Safari will become the best thing in the world. I don't know.